affirmation, talk story, things like that. So I'll start off today with a conversation I had with my dog. I was trying to explain to him why it's important for him not to use his teeth on human skin. And I was helping him understand that human skin is very vulnerable and tender. And he decided that that meant I was a dweeb. And he called me a dweeb. And I thought, how do you even know that word? That's very interesting. So just note to self, us humans are dweebs for having very sensitive, gentle skin. I am going to cleanse the energy a little bit and say a prayer. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Pisces new moon. If you're into that kind of jam, I know today has been a wonderful starting point to a whole new chapter in my life. Feeling really, really grateful for some healthy endings and fresh new beginnings. Feel free to share what's going on with you guys, okay? So let's cleanse some space. I'm going to just offer some Palo Santo to all of us and say a little prayer in the meantime. And I just want to invoke the energy of spirit, calling on the divine will, protection, and essence of the all that is. Thanking Spirit for assisting, supporting, and loving us. Honoring each and every one of you. Thanking you for showing up, being who you are. Asking Spirit to guide you and protect you. Thanking Spirit for assisting me to filter out any negative energy, cleansing out any evil eye, and helping me to tune into whatever it is at any moment in time that anybody watches this video may receive benefit from hearing or listening to. Thank you, Spirit, for assisting the entire consciousness to imbue us with inspiration, creativity, love, happiness, joy, connectivity. And thank you for assisting us to send that out to anyone and everyone in this world and off planet that could benefit from some support right now. Thank you, Spirit, for helping us hold the faith and maintain our ability to stay resilient, even in difficult times, uncertain times, such as this planet is going through right now. We appreciate your love, your guidance, your protection. Thank you for helping us clarify what is true guidance and intuition and what is not. Filtering out what no longer serves us. As above, so below, and so it is, thy will be done. Okay. All right, guys. So I was having a fantastic conversation with one of my favorite clients. Shout out to Hannah if she's tuning in. And she was bringing up something that I've been thinking about. I'm sure a lot of you guys have noticed. And also another friend had mentioned in the shift in the energy around the compulsion to look at our phone, aka the black mirror. Have any of you guys noticed how the energy has changed in regard to how you just get sucked in, right, to watching and needing to be more connected to the phone as that digital avatar that it is? And this channel has long talked about consciousness hacking, and there's always up-leveling to the technology and the way in which I just generally term the controllers is imposing that consciousness hacking onto us. Hi, Geek Bem. Hi, Geek Bemworth. I don't know how to say that name, but I like it. And one thing I've noticed is a significant uptick in the way in which the phone siphons our energy in. It's like pulling the consciousness into that portal. And something that my dog tells me all the time, please do join this conversation, Geek Bem. I'm going to, currently we're chatting on consciousness hacking, but feel free to ask any questions you want. This is a spiritual channel, or tune in at any point. We're open for dialogue here. Thanks for joining. And my dog is always trying to get in between me and my phone. And, oh, my pleasure. Thank you for joining, Geek Bum. And I think a lot of people experience this with their pets. I have a lot of pets, when I talk to them telepathically, complain about the phone. And it's not just because they want our attention, but I am clear specifically with my dog, he's concerned because he sees the way in which it siphons my consciousness and it worries him. So he's constantly trying to divert me from technology because it is quite concerning for him. Now, on the other end of that, my dog also is thoroughly enjoying, I bought a 3-pack of these ionizers. They're just plug-in ionizers that has enough strength to ionize one entire room. The rooms in my home aren't very big. And they're not expensive ionizers, so when you plug it in, it has a little bit of like a blue glow to it, which I would have assumed would bother my dog because, you know, who wants a light on when you're sleeping, and they're very light sensitive, but he absolutely loves it. So that was really validating that these ionizers work. He's always asking for it because I take the ionizer into my office, and at night I plug it in by his bed, and if I forget, he'll remind me before I go to bed. So if anybody is open to getting these really affordable, it's like $30 or $35 for a 3-pack on Amazon. The ionizers are really great. It's a quick fix for cleansing the energy and resetting, helping you reset your polarity, which is really, really important when we're working to cleanse our electromagnetic field. Now I'm going to jump around a little bit. I don't know if any of you guys have listened to Sabrina Wallace. She has a phenomenal skill set and expertise. She teaches and speaks out on a huge problem, which is called the body internet. And I certainly will not bastardize her work by trying to explain the intricate understandings that she has to offer, but essentially the body internet is how the 5G, the satellites, the wearables, right? A lot of people are wearing those Fitbits. Our phones have all of those health tracking settings and apps and such. There is and there's also, I mean, if you follow Sabrina Wallace, she'll give you the exact facts on it, how to prove it. She's got all the information. And this is not just, you know, some conspiracy theory that you can't prove. It's quite proven of how, you know, again, the controllers, and she'll give you the exact names and titles and what have you, utilize our electromagnetic fields as nodes in order to move packets of information in and out. So essentially, our energy is being siphoned and redistributed in order to run internet through our bodies, which is one reason why there's been a huge uptick in inflammatory experiences for people in the past several years, because as we all know, the Wi-Fi, the internet, it's highly inflammatory. It's a radiation. It's not good for us. And so when I'm experiencing the consciousness swiping through the phone technology, this is one part of it. And on this channel, we've talked a lot about how and Loud and Leon, it does a fantastic job at explaining this with great detail. Understanding how, again, what I generally call the controllers are creating the antiverse, the alternate experience in which to insert our consciousness in. Now, there's tons of sci-fi shows or documentaries really on how this is already happening. Hey, the controllers have figured out how to siphon our consciousness and pull the energy and extract it and what I'll call bilocate it. And if any of you guys explain this and can say it in a better way than me, please do so. And I'm not sure if you have had the experience where in dream time you're being taken to very specific places that are really not the your dream space, right? So let's move that. Okay. So I can tell the difference between my dream space, which is, you know, my own frequency signature. We've talked a lot about frequency signatures, right? And when I'm being inserted into an alternate simulation, right? And right now that's happening to such a huge way that, you know, dream time is really, really intense. We've been talking about dream time on this channel for a really, really long time, right? And it's very important to become more clear on what's happening, because we want to be able to call our consciousness back. That's very, very important. And one way that we can help call our consciousness back is to, again, as I've been saying on all of these lives, become very familiar with your frequency signature, your resting state, right? And that's basically your general vibe. And then once you've memorized your general vibe, how you're not hungry, you're not tired, you're not over or under any energy, what have you, you're neutral. And then anything that comes in and is overlaying that, you can start using the power of deduction to figure out what is your energy and what is someone else's or something else's. And to begin to work to protect and cleanse and clear your electromagnetic field. And I don't mean this in just some spiritual way because it's good to clean our energy. It's very, very important. And again, as Sabrina Wallace says this so well, your electromagnetic field, what in spirituality we call your aura, is a body part. It's an extremely important organ. Without electromagnetic energy, we will all die. Animals, plants, humans, you name it, okay? And we have been trained out of being able to recognize how imperative it is to cleanse and clear and strengthen our electromagnetic field. And because of that, we aren't able to see or sense or feel a lot of the times when our electromagnetic field is being siphoned, it's being used, it's being borrowed, it's being injured, what have you. And anytime you're having an experience where there is a distortion in your electromagnetic field, it is also going to show up in your other bodies. We have a lot of bodies. We have our energetic body. We have our auric body, an etheric body, a causal body, an emotional body, a mental body, a sexual body. We have a celestial body. We have a physical body, and so on it goes. It's not just this physical avatar that we're dealing with. And it's very important, holistically experiencing, to ensure the health of the whole, of the total. And your electromagnetic field is a very efficient body to view, scan, sense into, what have you. There's a lot of ways to do it in order to check on the health or lack thereof of your other bodies, and also to assist and support the protection and the agency. Hey, thanks, Ivy. I appreciate you. Of your consciousness. And your consciousness is different than your soul, okay? Your soul has consciousness, but not all consciousness is soul. And one thing I like to say is spirit is vaster than soul, okay? So spirit is to soul as soul is to ego. So spirit is the totality of our that's another one, plasmatic body, right? Our consciousness is plasma, and plasma is multidimensional. Spirit is the totality of our existence, all of the bodies in one, all of the consciousnesses in all dimensionalities, forms, and varieties. Your soul is a specific container of your consciousness that offers you movement through different dimensionalities, incarnations, what have you. You don't require your soul once you already are, all things are happening in all now moments, my perspective. Expand back into your spirit. The soul is a smaller experience of the totality. This is my opinion, my experience. The totality of your spirit. Just as the ego is a driving force, a moving motivator for soul and consciousness. You don't require the totality of your ego once you release this physical avatar and move back into your soul and expand into your fuller consciousness. Though many people do pull it with them, which is why, in my perception, a lot of personality and characteristic traits can journey with you through different lifetimes and timelines. And we think about consciousness, there's lots of different forms of it, right? We talk about AI consciousness, sentient consciousness, and then there's soul consciousness, and then there's the consciousness of the masses, and then there's being conscious, subconscious, unconscious. There's lots of different varieties and forms. So it's also very important for us to begin to learn how to recognize and experience into our consciousness so that we can become more aware of when it's being taken from us or imposed upon. Now, it's easy to mix up the experience of your consciousness and your thoughts, okay? The mind space is a consciousness experience that is discerning thought forms. Thought forms are plasma. They're measurable. They have been measured. This is why it's important to begin to learn, if you don't already know this, a lot of you guys know this, right? That thought forms can be inserted, they can be manipulated, they can be extracted. This is already happening in a way that's quite public. I mean, I've seen videos of posted signs in big cities like London where they are talking about being aware of the thoughts you're having because they can be penalized by law. The technology, and it's existed for quite a long time, you can look it up, it's public domain, of how thoughts can be read, and it happens all the time at the airports, right? They're constantly scanning your thoughts. It is easy tech and not very expensive to insert thought forms into people's mind. And it is also quite easy to recognize when thought forms are imposing upon you if you learn and start to train in the discernment of frequency signature reading. And that's my term. There's a lot of different terms for it. Pause and shout out to Helen. Honey, thank you for your message on that last live. When I edit the videos on YouTube, it actually creates a whole new video, which negates the live. I am so grateful that you're still enjoying the Alters and Aspects class even years later. Thank you for that feedback. I appreciate you. And are you the client that has the phenomenal ability to read energy? I was thinking about you the other day. I hope you're doing well. And again, I'll be here every Wednesday, Thursday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you want to pop on. Okay, so learning how to discern your thought forms is very important, and understanding which ones are yours and which ones are not. And it might seem daunting in the beginning, but it's actually pretty easy. If you think about times where random thoughts have just popped into your head, especially thoughts that are very unlike you. Maybe they're intrusive thoughts. Maybe they're really horrific. Maybe they're really negative. They don't have your frequency signature, and they're even quite surprising. I find it better to lean into, especially while you're learning how to do this, you are welcome to dump all of those types of thoughts into the category of imposed false thought forms. Because it's not that you're necessarily going to make any imperative pivotal decisions on this. So it's a wonderful way for you to start differentiating what's your thoughts and frequency signatures and what's not. Because your mind, your mental space is like a blank canvas, and it is easy for energies and thought forms in that plasma to be inserted into your mental space. And one kind of extreme, upsetting example I'm going to give is, I'm sure it's happening a lot still, but there was a time period where I was working often in LA. And something that would be brought to my attention quite often from concerned parents and even the youth, because I used to work with a handful of young 20-ish year olds, even younger. There was a lot of young teenagers in early 20s contemplating suicide. And it was an alarming amount. And when I tuned into the energy, I was very clear that these were imposed thought forms, that these young ones are not recognizing they're not theirs, but they're believing it because most people believe it's in your mind, right? It must be yours, right? You don't have to claim ownership of something that you're experiencing just because it appears within your own personal space, right? We can command it out. And that's the same for emotions and belief systems. It doesn't mean just because you make a command, it's going to go away completely immediately, because it has to have something to attach to, which cannot, thought forms are quite easy to send away. Though belief systems and emotions can be a little bit more difficult because they're usually attaching to some kind of a trauma or a schism. And a schism is an interesting experience because a schism is an energy that gets trapped into the physical tissue, usually the myofascia of your body. If you guys don't know what your myofascial sheath is, it's a really amazing organ. I hope you learn about it. If you've ever experienced the clear, thin film on a raw chicken, that is fascia. It is a extremely strong, malleable, pliable substance that has a really strong PSI. It's strong enough to pull bones out of place. It absolutely covers everything in your body. If you were to pull out your entire myofascial sheath, it's really cool. It would be like an entire skeletal structure of all of your organs, your muscles, your tendons, what have you. It holds spirit and consciousness. It moves. It's one reason that an injury that maybe you got right here, let's say you got tennis elbow and it starts crawling to your wrist, because the fascia gets caught and starts to spiral. The way in which you can help release your fascia, it's a very light engagement because it's on top of the muscle. So if you press too hard, you bypass it and go into the muscle. So it's a gentle connection. And then you can communicate with it telepathically through consciousness to reset. And you use a very specific slow movement to help navigate it back into its optimal placement and positioning. It's very, very cool. And any massage therapists or chiropractors, anybody who's worked with fascia is probably pretty clear in how it is a consciousness facilitator, because that's literally how you work with it. So your fascia and your cerebral spinal fluid, the viscous fluid that runs from your coccyx all the way up into the base of your skull and back down, in my experience and perspective, is two of the main ways that your spirit moves through your body. Okay? And so when you're working with your consciousness, you can start to understand that there is a frequency signature of your consciousness. You can help it release any strongholds or traumas that are being magnetic to false thoughts, false emotions, trauma points, you have it, you name it. We can release this. Thoughts are a lot easier to release. We go through what they say, something like 30,000 plus thoughts a day, which is incredible. Hey, gracious sunchild, that's a sweet name. You say, what breed is my doggy? LOL. My dog is a giant 100-ish pound Labrador Retriever, and his name is Gem, G-E-M. I did not name him. A lot of people think I say Jim. He's awesome. I'll bring him onto a live. He is a hoot. He's a really sweet boy, and it's very, very rambunctious. And he just has the funniest things to say. Animals are so funny. I love talking to animals. They are just hilarious. They constantly amuse me. We got into a conversation the other day about talking to plants. And I was asking him if plants communicate with him. And he said, all the time. And I said, oh, what do they say to you? You know, and I can't always be sure, like, when he's being serious or joking, but I do think he was being playfully honest. He said that the plants tell him all the time, ouch, don't step on me. And I said, oh, what do? Do you feel bad? He's like, no, I don't feel bad. I'm supposed to step all over them, but I do hear it. It was really, really funny. Anyway, he's a good boy, and we chat all day, every day, and people must think I'm nuts because I'm always talking out loud to my dog. Gracious Sunchild says, I hope he doesn't call me dweeby. He might. I have a judgmental beagle who is my roommate. I heard beagles are pretty judgmental. Yeah, he might call you a dweeb. He said it with love. It was really, really funny, though. Because sometimes these animals pull these words that I'm like, where did you even get that, you know? Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I bet beagles have big personalities. They're pretty intelligent dogs, aren't they? I've never really hung out much with a beagle. Okay, so thought forms, it's really, really important to begin to learn that a lot of these thoughts are not your own, and to protect your thought forms. It's very easy for technologies to read your thoughts. If you're concerned about that happening, learn how to mute your thoughts. That can be difficult. So if you're concerned about, let's say you're at the airport, you're going through TSA, and maybe you're worried about how they're tuning into your thoughts. Start thinking random things that you know they're not interested in. Sometimes it's easy to white it out. A lot of people like using bright white light, what have you. Okay? There are ways in which you can protect your thought forms and your energy and realize when your thoughts are being hacked or they're being imposed. And once you get that experience down, it does not take long. Then you can start to expand out into the feeling and sensory perception of how to recognize when your consciousness is being manipulated. And that's very important because our consciousness is continuously being manipulated at this point in time. And we are contracting so often. You know, every time we download an app and we check the disclaimer, privacy policies, we're making a contract. Okay, contracts, not just in the physical realm, they can stand firm throughout consciousness and in the spiritual dimensionalities. You know, I just watched this video of a gentleman who was talking about how, let's say you're having a conversation with your best friend and you say something like, oh my God, you and I are going to be together forever. And he says, boom, there is a contract that supersedes this lifetime. You were just being playful, but that is a pretty big notion to think that you've just energetically contracted with that being or individual throughout space and time. Now, of course, we can go in and rebuke these contracts, and I highly advise you do quite often, especially for how much we are now engaging in contracts, right? It's happening all the time, especially with all of the tech and the AI. We have to clear these things out because we don't know. Most of us do not read these contracts, these disclaimers, these privacy policies, nor do we understand what they're actually invoking in the realms of consciousness and dimensionality, right? We all have our own concerns around social media, and you better believe that they are siphoning that consciousness. So protect yourself, protect your dream time. It's really, really, really important. Okay, so Gracious Sunchild, I wanted to share how this last weekend I went to a Celtic festival. It was so fun. And I met a beautiful sunset orange iguana named Gingerbread. And she was so cool. I walked by her and I said, "Are you having a good time?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm having a great time." She was so chill. And I was intrigued by, I didn't know it was a her when I walked by and said that, but I have had conversations with iguanas in the past when I was traveling through the Galapagos. I loved it too, Gracious Sunchild. It was awesome. When I was traveling through the Galapagos, I had a lot of conversations with wild iguanas there. And the ones I spoke to them both as an individual and as a collective. And the ones I talked to, and I'm not sure again if they were male or female, I took it as very masculine energy, but they were very dominant, not necessarily aggressive, but very territorial and didn't want anything to do with the humans. You know, they were really posturing, and that was how the communication came across as well. And I totally respected that. It was just the vibe, right? So I presumed that this iguana would be the same. And you know, after a little bit, I approached the human and I said, "Hey, you know, I'm a telepathic communicator. Would you be open to me offering you a free session if we can videotape it and you'll let me post it live?" He's like, "Whoa, that's different." I was like, "Yeah." And I started talking a little bit with the iguana, and she was so laid back and chill and just having a great time. It was very different than the other iguana that I had talked to. So I decided that how fun would it be that I just start posting some of these animal telepathic communications as some of the social media posts that I do that are non-live. So if that interests you guys, I'll start plopping those up on there. I also have a turtle I need to talk to, and that one will be another donation through video. So that should be fun too. So I digress. Okay, now another experience I had at this Celtic festival was a vendor called me over to say hi, and I could tell, you know, you can tell immediately when somebody's calling you over because they want to hit on you. It was that kind of energy, right? And I was just being, you know, nonchalant and playful or whatever. And at some point in the lighthearted conversation, he asked me on a date or something like that, and I respectfully declined and let him know I'm not interested, but I'm flattered. And his immediate response was like, "Okay, you're not gonna buy," and it was kind of playful, but he's like, "Okay, you're not gonna buy anything, get out of here," right? It was a dismissal. I didn't think anything of it, like no big deal, whatever. I just told him I didn't want to go out with him, so I walked off. And I let it go. And then later I walked back by and he called out to get my attention again. And the second time he called out, he shifted his energy and started being what I would term as like a little gross, right? And it made me think about how I missed that moment that he initiated a discard. And this is a really important thing, I think, to catch. If anyone ever uses discard, devaluation, any type of criticism, judgment, anything that's meant to bring you down or demean you, even in a really, really subtle way, like a joke, you know, like kind of jabbing at you or whatever, when you're just meeting somebody, please get out of there immediately. Okay. And it's easy to miss if you're used to just kind of like shooting the shit and bantering and poking fun. But anytime somebody has uses the tactic to devalue, dismiss, or discard, that is a big, big red flag. None of us need that, right? And you can imagine if you were to move forward in engaging with somebody in any capacity, how that will easily turn into a very disrespectful situation. And I was just intrigued with that moment because I I'm a lighthearted person, so I just kind of like let it go. But it was in that he couldn't handle that moment where I opted out of his invitation for a date or get it together. And so he needed to devalue me immediately, right? That's a huge tell. Gracious Sunchild says, there's no reason to devalue you. Red flag alert, he couldn't stand your sovereignty. Exactly, right? You're not in your own agency if you feel the need to discard or devalue or dismiss somebody. And that just happened to me today, which really validated a decision I had made, like a decision I had made to set a boundary. The reaction to that, which is the whole reason I'm setting the boundary anyway, was an immediate dismissal. And and there's no time that they're even processing what's being offered. It's just a bam right back, which shows the trigger, right? And the validation of making that decision to hold your boundary. So that was pretty validating. And it's an interesting experience because if, like you just said, Gracious Sunchild, if you're not in your sovereignty and your self-agency, it's easy to personalize that. But it has absolutely nothing to do with us. It's simply a reflection of what's going on inside of somebody else, right? Now, on the flip side to that, speaking about interacting, through friendly flirtation, there is a wonderful, she's quite a well-known behavioralist, and she speaks mostly on communication and dating and flirting. And the stats have shown that it takes an average of 21 indicators of attraction before someone will approach somebody. Now, isn't that incredible? So imagine this, you make eye contact once or twice and you think that's more than obvious, but 21 indicators is the average in which it requires somebody to actually approach. And of course, I can understand how that's a moment of courage, right? And it might feel a little awkward. And I always think it's so amazing how men overcome that and they learn to approach a woman, because that should be really intimidating. And I think sometimes if a guy's quick to approach, that gets my guard up a little bit because they didn't seem to have any hesitation. And I know that could just mean that they're confident in themselves, but overconfidence is always a concern for me. Though what I'm trying to speak to right now is, if you know that you're a healthy, polite, respectable person, and you thought that maybe you read them right on the first eye contact or what have you, but that there was no second indicator, but you do want to engage, go for it, right? It's not going to be anything negative if they're also a kind, self-respecting person for you just to say, hey. And so don't miss the opportunity. That's my invite. So here is just my experience at this festival on both ends of the spectrum in the intriguing, back and forth of dynamics of flirtation and attraction and interaction. Okay, so that was something that I just wanted to mention and bring up. Now, on another note, I have been thinking about fear a lot lately, and I watched a video from a woman who, she is a disciple of the Bible, and she studies a lot of scripture. And she was talking about how she found the verses where in the Bible God is communicating how fear is a place. Now, I found that quite a profound statement. Fear not being an emotional experience, but an actual dimensionality in which you enter. Now, a long time ago, I channeled the frequency of fear, and fear communicated with me. I used to have it on my YouTube channel, but I put it on private just because I pulled all of my channels off because I no longer really align with channeling. Though fear, the energy of fear, of essence of fear, was talking about the experience of it being devalued, actually, of how everybody has such a profound, intimate relationship with fear, though most have no appreciation for it. They're constantly invoking it and simultaneously rejecting it. Instead of having some kind of understanding in the relationship, and fear was talking about how its higher self is courage. Now, I thought that was very intriguing, and I really liked this perspective. And, a little while ago, I clarified the difference between courage and bravery. And for me, bravery is often an acute action to an experience where you need to step up and move through fear. It's a quick fire trigger. Courage has a longer, slower burn. Courage can be more preempted, and you can keep moving through the energy of courage. So, we all know that adage, feel the fear and do it anyway, right? That's courage. And so the idea of fear being a space, a dimensionality, was very, very intriguing to me, because when I feel into the frequency signature of fear, that's hi, Rayanne, that's very much the experience. It's a very different experience. We're all extremely aware of it immediately. I mean, it hits our nervous system instantly, right? And it affects all that we are. It can be very all-consuming. And Spirit offered me this nugget around fear as I was contemplating. And what I received is, fear is the summit. Okay, so like we get up the top of a mountain and we summit. Now here we are. Fear is the summit. Courage is the inertia. And so I looked up inertia, and inertia is how matter tends to rest in a resting state and stay in motion when it's moving. Okay, so it's that experience of a continual experience unless an external force is imposed. So courage is inertia. And then I heard blind faith is the velocity. And I looked up velocity, and velocity is the rate of speed, okay? And then I heard either way you fall, okay? So whether or not you're experiencing courage and blind faith, your movement through fear is a free fall. And then I also heard fear is antimatter. And now that spoke to me as a dimensionality. Okay, now we live in a polarity reality. So matter and antimatter require each other in order to exist, and they also cancel each other out. So just some food for thought. I thought it was a very interesting nugget to think about on fear. Now, a lot of us have heard in the spiritual community that fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. And I really appreciate that. That one rings very true to me, because most of us have also experienced how fear is something that we tend to embellish a fantasy in. And once we have the experience, whether we moved through it cowardly or courageously, on the other end of it, the fear usually diminishes, and then the experience was a lot less scary than we imagined it to be, right? So that offers some proof in the pudding to that created acronym, false evidence appearing real. And that space of where you're moving through the fear, that's that dimensionality, right? And fear is often a catalyst for altering timelines. Our last live, we talked about altering timelines. And fear is one huge reason we alter timelines on either end of that spectrum. So anyway, just some fun food for thought I wanted to share. The antimatter aspect got me thinking about the inversion. So I talk a lot on this channel about Lauda Leon, my mentor, And she introduced me to the concept of our inverted reality. The more universal way that, at least in my upbringing, that this has been modeled is the fall of, the fallen angels. So I was raised Catholic, Christian, a lot of Bible study, right? And so the fallen angels is, even if you're not religious, you've probably heard of the fall, okay? Now that is a very clear example of the inversion. Literally falling is inverting. You're no longer upright, okay? So you're falling. And the perspective of that we're living in an inverted reality is something that rings very true in my experience. Now, I often, and right now I'm thinking of that movie. Do you guys know which movie I'm talking about, where it was the two worlds and one was upside down and one was right side up? And a guy from one and a girl from the other, they fell in love and they'd meet, but they could never be together. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, that movie? That's a fantastic example of the inverted world and the upright world. Please let me know in the comments if you know the name of that movie. And so the experience of the inversion is a intriguing experience. A lot of us have had the understanding of how society deems certain things to be inappropriate, that for a lot of us that have access to our emotional intelligence and are more awake and are more rebellious in our spirit, no is just not right, doesn't feel good to us, regardless of it being status quo. Those experiences are usually prime examples of the inversion being imposed onto you, but you knowing better, you knowing the right side up experience. So I invoke the energy and the deity, the being of Heyoka. I love Heyoka. I resonate with this very much. Heyoka is an indigenous Native American term. Yes, oh, the name of it's upside down, Douglas Stein, thank you. Yeah, that is a fantastic example of the actual experience of the inversion. And I know that has other meanings that we could go into around the type of worlds we live in, right? But that could be a conversation for another day, unless anybody wants to indulge. Though the Heyoka is a term that means the sacred clown. And I really align with that. And I've always invoked Heyoka energy my entire life, not necessarily knowing the term Heyoka. And the sacred clown is a contrarian, okay? They're known as a spiritual teacher and jokester, and they often offer their wisdom through being contradictory, which can be very infuriating for a lot of people that have to deal with Heyoka, because their actions just don't make sense. And you have to have a bit of a sense of humor and then the ability to expand out and be more objective to receive the lesson that Heyoka offers. And so the experience of the sacred clown I find very intriguing, because often I don't even, Grace's Sunchild, I think one of your messages just got deleted from off of YouTube because it was so long. I'll change that setting tomorrow, but maybe if you want to repeat it, just put a couple sentences at a time and send it. I'll have to change that setting. So sorry about that, honey. And so I've often had these experiences which feel very contradictory and contrarian to other people. But what I'm realizing is the reason it feels contradictory is because they're coming from a perspective of the inversion, which appears that my energy or offering or any Heyoka invocation is itself inverted, even though it's upright, because it's being viewed from the inversion as if the inversion were the right way. So that's a really interesting perspective that I was thinking about. And I saw that message that somebody just popped in about the sacred clown, but again, it got deleted. I'm so sorry. You're welcome to try to I'm gonna see if I can remove. Okay, so I just changed the setting. You guys should be able to send those messages again, no problem. I'm so sorry about that. I'll change those settings. Anyway, Heyoka energy I find very, very powerful, but it can be an interesting experience to move through this type of consciousness and be misunderstood a lot. Have you guys had that experience where you feel out of place? I think this is a wonderful trial that a lot of us in the spiritual community go through, where it seems as if we're alone in this experience and misunderstood, which I find to be a test of will that is imposed upon us. And I'm not saying it's always spirit imposing it. Oftentimes it can be us and our karma and our soul experiences imposing this onto us so that we can have the ability to break through some false belief systems that are lingering, that maybe are subconscious, right? Because it's an illusion. It's an illusion that you're always misunderstood and that you're alone and that you're without your tribe or your community. And the reason I know this to be fact, at least for me, one is because I remember the moment that I realized that spirit is my best friend. Spirit is my best friend. I was looking in the mirror in my apartment, and this was like my first stint of being celibate consciously, doing it for spiritual reasons. And I had a long-standing practice of eye gazing. And if you guys haven't ever tried eye gazing, it is powerful stuff, I tell you what. And I realized I was so filled with love and peace and nurturance and just that blissed out feeling, really. Indulging in my bliss of communing and being in love with spirit. And I realized in that moment, I had overcome an experience where I had shifted from having a relationship with spirit where spirit was an entity or an energy, consciousness or concept outside of myself. Even though I understand the theory of we are all one and I am spirit and spirit is me, I didn't experience that. That wasn't my reality. That wasn't my experiential knowing. It was something that was outside of me that I revered and offered and paid homage to, though I would seek it in that way. You know, sometimes we even like pray up and out. And at some point in this, intimate experience of my rituals and just being in my own energy and communing, that had shifted to where spirit lived in here and was home. I am spirit, spirit. Like I felt it so thoroughly, and I that was my truth, and I owned it, and I felt just embodied. And that was something that never left me. It was an amazing moment. And in that moment, I grounded the experiential knowing of I am never alone, which was wonderful. Another reason that I know that for myself through and through is because being a telepathic communicator, I communicate often with beings that have crossed over, okay? And I can not just talk to them, I can see them and feel them. They're always with us. We can always invoke that. It doesn't mean that, we are conscious of it, though I have the gift to be able to experience it consciously, which showed me again, I'm never alone. They're always right there if I want to invite that energy in. And then in addition to that, which is something that my wonderful client Hannah helped me remember yesterday in session, we were doing some inner child work, and I love inner child work. If you guys haven't done inner child work, I'd be happy to share my information with you about it. I have a free inner child workbook and worksheet. You are welcome to go to my website, chloe-hudson.com. Message me through my website and I'll be happy to share that with you. It's a fantastic work through, and it's very in-depth. It'll take you right through the whole process. If you've never done inner child work, it's really, really powerful. And we were doing this inner child work, and it just reminded me of how we're truly never alone, because we have all of these different inner children that we're constantly engaging with. Doesn't mean we're conscious of, doesn't mean that we're working with them consciously, right? But if you start doing your inner child work, you can be very conscious of it. And you're always being their supportive caretaker, right? And loving and nurturing them. And then you really know you're never alone. And that's a fantastic experience, because anytime you feel lonely, because you can be quite fulfilled being alone. I am very fulfilled in my moments of being alone. It does not mean I'm lonely. And in those moments, I can commune with a huge variety of beings and energies and consciousness. I'm truly never alone. Sometimes I couldn't be if I wanted to be, right? And anybody who's telepathic can understand that. Sometimes you actually want to be truly alone, just sometimes, but that can be hard to come by, right? So if you have that experience where you're feeling lonely and you're feeling alone in a way that you don't enjoy, please feel free to reach out, and I hope that you know that there are so many of us out here that care about you, that would be so happy to connect with you and help support you, because we truly are a community. There's a lot of love and support that is on offer if we're open and willing to find it. And those are the moments where you can simply put out what I call a clarion call. Actually, I haven't used that term in a long time. Put out a clarion call to the universe. Universe, I demand to experience and receive a loving, healthy community and support system that receives me as who I am, celebrates all that I am, is free from judgment, and helps me to remember that I am fantastic, I am beautiful, I am resilient, and I am valuable. I want these people and these beings and energies to reflect this back to me continuously as I offer them the same in kind. Thank you, Spirit. As above, so below, and so it is, thy will be done. Boom. Right? Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me and humoring me as I jump around in a lot of different topics. I will be back tomorrow, Thursday, from 6 p.m. to possibly 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if people want to come fill the space with me. Again, my name is Chloe Hudson. I have lots of videos up on YouTube. You are welcome to check out my website, chloe-hudson.com. If you want to check out my works, book a session, feel free. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic Pisces new moon. See you tomorrow. Bye.